Hey, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Varsity Washington podcast. I'm your host, Todd Milles. Now, some of you might know me on social media as Many Hats Milles, or the senior reporter at Scorebook Live Washington the past 6 years. Or maybe you know me from the 24 years I spent as a sports reporter at the News Tribune in Tacoma, covering just about everything. Hence, my nickname, Many Hats Milles. Well, today is the beginning of something new, something important to me, because I understand the value of high school sports has to communities throughout the state. We are launching a website called Varsity Washington, or VarsityWA for short. What exactly is VarsityWA? Primarily, it's a subscription-based news site on Substack that will provide comprehensive coverage of the high school sports landscape around the state of Washington during each of the fall, winter, and spring seasons. Some of our weekly coverage staples include single classification and all classification rankings, notebook updates with tidbits from both sides of the state, plus photos, video highlights, and analysis from the big games in Washington. And of course, we will have a podcast. Joining me for the launch of this new venture is Lauren Smith, also a former sports reporter at the News Tribune. Combined, we bring nearly 4 decades of sports writing experience to this new storytelling platform. This week, we'll kick things off with the beginning of the high school football season. We'll have in-depth previews for each league in all 6 classifications, a schedule breakout of some of the top games to watch each week this fall, and a conversation with WIA Executive Director Mick Hoffman. More on that later, and much more as we head toward week 1. You can follow along with all of our Varsity WA coverage on Substack. Just follow the link in the description below. And subscribe here on YouTube as well for weekly podcasts and more. Now, for the first edition of VarsityWA Podcast, just days ahead of fall camp, I talked to computer rankings expert Matt Evans of Evans Rankings, a staple in the state coverage scene as well. We will look back at the 2024 season, which includes some of the thrilling state championship games at Husky Stadium in Seattle. And then we will look ahead at what to expect as we kick off 2025. Now, I think we're going to create the premier high school sports website at the state level. But, hey, I know I need some horsepower here, man. And I am really excited about this guy joining us on a consistent basis for this season. None other than Matt Evans from Evans Rankings, Tri-Cities based. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Todd. It's good to be here. It's good to be a part of this new venture, and I'm really excited. It's football season. It's prep sports season. It's the best time of the year.
I know most of your readership, viewership knows a little bit about your background, but just for people that are joining our website, joining our podcast, explain how you got into this.
So I am a math nerd. Like that's just what I am. I love numbers. I've loved numbers since I was just a wee one, and it just kind of started. This whole thing started back in the late 90s, when I think Pasco was getting ready to play a state championship football game. And I kind of was like, oh, I wonder if I could predict who's going to win this game. And just kind of threw some, very juvenile formula together. And I think I was wrong, but, it just kind of, and from there, it just kind of, as data became available on websites, I just kind of started like, oh, I wonder what this would be like. I wonder what this be like. And then Evans Rankings as a whole kind of became official in 2013, I believe. I started doing just putting stuff out there on the internet. And then a few years later, after seeing that there were people doing high school sports, I was like, let's put my foot in there, see what I can do. And ever since, I think it was 2016, 2017, and from there, just kind of grown to what it is today.
Hey, I'm really excited about having Matt as a regular contributor. Everybody knows how good his product is, how well read his rankings are. So thanks for jumping on here in podcast number 1. I think the last time I saw you was at Husky Stadium for Gridiron Classic, 2 days of exciting. Some history was made. Some great individual performances were made. Um, when you look back at those 2 days in Seattle, I'd like to kind of revisit that. What kind of sticks out about the six games that we watched on that Friday and Saturday in Husky Stadium?
I felt like the most intriguing thing for me was just, I mean, while some scores were a little lopsided, like just how competitive all the games were. It seemed like for at least five of the six games, both teams had a chance until, one mistake maybe propelled one team to get a quick touchdown or two, and 1A looking at that one in particular, and 2B just kind of getting a little out of hand late. But for the most part, we had really exciting games, and just the quality of play on the field from even the 8-man game all the way up to 4A on Saturday night. There were some very top-notch performances, and just being in that setting too was just fantastic. I mean, even at the 8-man game, there weren't a ton of people there, but it felt like there were so much more while standing there on the sidelines. It was crazy how the sound echoed in that building with as many people as there were.
Yeah, you think about the individual performance you mentioned, Preston Michelle
Oh
from
yeah.
Wilbur Creston Keller, Lance Allred from Royal. I mean, setting a state championship record with 6 touchdown runs. Carter Kukenbook, who's going to be a fantastic tight end at Boise State. 4 touchdown passes. I didn't think he was capable of doing that. He looked like an NFL quarterback that day. Um, Brock Beaner, the long touchdown run. Uriah Stringfield, where did he come from in this
Stringfield. Hmm.
postseason? Had another monster game and really kind of led O'Day past Bellevue in that second half. But I wanted to ask you about the 4A championship game because somebody asked me if a 4A championship game had ever ended on the final play, if it was ever decided on a final play or ever decided by a field goal. And I couldn't tell you. I don't think it has. Maybe in some of the smaller classifications. I do remember Lyndon Christian making a field goal, maybe in overtime or something. But what about just that classic Sumner Camas showdown sticks with you the most?
So really quickly, one comes to mind, being a Tri-Cities guy. That Chiawana Camus game ended on a touchdown, on an extra point, technically. So, I mean, I mean, that could answer that question.
Okay.
Obviously, being a Tri-Cities guy, that's really
Hey,
close
that's
to the
why you're
vest
here,
there.
Matt.
But
That's why you're
exactly.
here. We need the verification, man, or the correction,
The
one of the two. Yeah.
the all Matnack. All right, so yeah, that 4A game was just, I mean, it was the ground game of Sumner, Steele Isaacs with 170 yards against the air from Jake Davidson and Chase McGee and Camus, and it was the unstoppable force versus the unstoppable force, and it seemed like it really did. I think in the press box, I want to say that by halftime, we're like, whoever has the ball last is going to win this game. And obviously that's what happened. But man, that game was just so much fun to watch. You could feel just how tense that the sidelines was, and just how the building was just from everywhere. I mean, I was sitting up in the press box during that, and it felt like I was sitting 50-yard lines on the Sumner side. It was just, you could feel just the energy in the building. It was a fantastic watch, and I hope that this year's game, whomever gets there, is going to give us another classic.
It's amazing because the fake punt is a huge play
Hmm.
on that final drive. Was it called? Wasn't it called? It was called and then tried to get called off, and the players. There's a lot of urban legends already out there about what exactly took place. Fortunately for Sumner, that fake punt happened. They got the first down, and like you said, the last team with the ball ended up winning the game. It was a great way to close out the second Gridiron Classic at Husky Stadium. So, and speaking of Husky Stadium, I got a chance to talk to Mick Hoffman a little bit earlier in the week. I got to sit down, kind of a 5 questions format with him, and one of the things that I wanted to ask him about was, we're entering a third year at Husky Stadium. It looks like it's a good partnership. One of the things he told me was now that Lumen Field has shown interest in maybe joining the fray in the future. But what I asked him was, Seattle's Memorial Stadium, the historic Memorial Stadium, is finally closed. It closed right after the last sporting event of the spring, Matt. It's going under $140 million renovation. Won't be reopened until 2027. But I think with the people that have seen the renderings of this thing, it could be, there are people that think it could be the home of future WIA championships, including maybe Gridiron Classic. I asked Mick Hoffman that, and listen to what he had to say.
First, the Huskies have been great to us. I mean, with what they've done in adjusting pricing and availability of the stadium to make it work for high school sports is awesome. So as long as they're willing to continue to work with us like that, we're going to be tried and true and good partners with people who took care of us. But yeah, we've been following the Memorial one since the inception of the idea before they even passed their bonds and levies for it. I think one of the things that needs to be determined is they're partnering with a group that really wants to make it a community asset. And so with that, how available is that going to be? With the desire for concerts, I mean, I can't imagine December's probably a hot time for a lot of outdoor events other than football. So we're thinking our timing might be good. Also, the logistics of it, we heard that it's going to be a pretty open stadium, and we haven't seen the final designs on that. So I think availability, how are they willing to work with a nonprofit like WIA in high school sports? And but what a beautiful setting. There's logistical issues there as well. I mean, people got to find a place to park. Parking's not always cheap in downtown Seattle. We get complaints when we've had semifinal football games there or soccer semifinal. Seattle schools, Pat Tara do a great job hosting. So it's definitely an option. Lumen Fields expressed some interest now, doing something possibly similar to what the Huskies have done. But again, UW was the first to step up. We were knocking on all those doors for years, trying to get in and something that would work. And UW was the first one to say yes. So, out of courtesy and loyalty to them, we are very happy at the University of Washington. If for some reason that changes, we would definitely keep our options open.
So let me put you on the spot, Matt. In 2030, where will Gridiron Classic be held?
I'm gonna say that it will be held. It will be the last year it's held at Husky Stadium, and I think it's moving to Memorial the next year. I think that the idea of Lumen Field is very intriguing. The biggest issue that I think there is kind of what Mick said with Memorial is just scheduling. Lumen's got the Seahawks, it's got the Sounders, it's got the Seattle Reign. It's got a lot of events there, and especially with I think the Sounders may not be too big of an issue because I think MLS calendar's switching to so that the championship's not going to be in early December. But that's one of the issues is they've got to have stadium availability in early December for MLS Cup if they get there, and our Sounders have been really good. So availability at Lumen is kind of, I personally, obviously, I'm wearing my Husky stuff right here. I love seeing it at Husky Stadium. It's a great recruiting tool for the school, for the school, but it's also just a top-notch atmosphere, a top-notch building, and they have the amenities. They have, as long as it's like Mick said, as long as they have a solid partnership, I don't see a reason why it shouldn't be there.
I agree with that, Matt. The Huskies make it affordable for the WIA, and that's what made it attractive 2 years ago. I like the atmosphere there. I know one of the question marks when it went to Husky Stadium was, is it going to be too big? And I don't think that's the case. There's something about being on the field. It is surprisingly loud and boisterous. I like the way the noise bounces off different parts of the stadium. You can hear things pretty well. I think it's a great atmosphere. I think the noise level's good. It doesn't feel like it's too far away. Do I think Memorial Stadium will be a site for WIA championships? Yeah, let's start with soccer. Let's start with, maybe girls flag football.
Yeah, that'd be a great one.
But I'd like to see, like Mick, I'd like to see how this partnership kind of goes through. It's been a good partnership so far. If it continues to be a good partnership through 2030, why not? It's been a good home. I think you and I have both enjoyed covering the state championships there and looking forward to being back there in December. Well, speaking of that, we're a few weeks away from week one. I don't want to get too specific, into too specific classification overviews, but just some general things about 2025 you're looking forward to, maybe one or two things that really piqued your interest as we're a few weeks out from kicking off.
Locally for me, it's been just seeing impactful underclassmen now becoming the leaders this next year, being the juniors and the seniors who are going to be running the show after being kind of depth pieces and kind of spark plugs. It's going to be interesting to see. I've got a couple of kids down here in a couple of schools that I'm really intrigued to see. The other thing that I watched a lot of 7-on-7 over the break. And you get really excited about schools, and you start talking with people about them, and like, oh, what do you think about what about these guys? And I'm like, well, they looked great on 7-on-7, but I got to see what the line play looks like, because that's what's going to win you football games in high school football. If you can't protect your quarterback, 7-on-7 means nothing. If you can't open up running lanes, 7-on-7 means nothing. So that's the thing I'm going to be intrigued with, just watching how, a lot of schools that have graduated some of their lines, how are the new kids going to impact it? Some big impact transfers too. How are they going to fit in at their new schools? There's a lot of fun stuff to watch this year, and I think there are 3 or 4 classes that are wide open that 5 or 6 teams could win at least.
Yeah, the two things that I'm most intrigued about heading as we're a few weeks away is the start in Class 4A. Talking to all 4 coaches from the state semifinals last year, Tijuana, Gonzaga Prep, obviously Camas and Sumner, all felt like if you had played those semifinals the next week, you'd have 2 different teams in the state championship team. I mean, they were so equal, all 4 of them. Any one of those teams could have been state champions last year. In fact, both state finalists thought, man, Chiawana, how did we get by Chiawana? We remember both of those teams from Eastern Washington had leads into the second half of the state semifinals. And I think all 4 of those teams could very well be the Final Four this fall. For people that think that Chiawana's runs over, I think people are going to find out about Gage Williams. I know you know who he is. They kind of used him in sort of a slash role last year. He's the full-time quarterback. They've got the Sissany boys. I mean, at least until the new school, it is a noticeable effect where it impacts, Chiawana's, roster count. I still think the Riverhawks are going to be very relevant. They're so well coached. I think defensively they're still going to be good. I really think that they've got at least one more good year in them to make a run to the championship. We all know about Gonzaga Prep. They could easily be preseason number 1 with what they have back. Sumner and Camas both have gotten some new players, and we'll get into that more later. But I think that puts them back in the championship mix, and it would not surprise me if all 4 of those teams are in the Final Four come late November. The second thing is, I think the most intriguing league championship race is also in Eastern Washington, and it's in the SCAC. Royal and Kashmir. Oh my gosh, Matt! Everybody's just waiting for the other shoe to drop on Royal. 5 in a row. It's now a WIA record, but they lose Lance Allred. Kashmir has everybody back. They've got one of the best passing attacks in 1A with Ryan Hatmaker and Logan Spees and Tom McDevitt. You have Print Fox on the line. I mean, they have all the pieces, and they've tasted the Royal experience twice last year. I think they have to go to Royal this year in the regular season, but is this the year? Is this the year that Kashmir can go win knock Royal out, not only for a league championship, but end their 5-year state championship run? I really think this has the making of a really exciting classification. And then there are others, obviously, with Seton Catholic, Lyndon Christian's going to be high flying. All the good quarterbacks that are in 1A, as you know, all the guys that have passed for more than 2,000 yards that are back. Life Christian, Kings is going to be I think a team that people sleep on. But that classification's really, really strong. Could be open. It's obviously nobody's going to bet on Royal, but that Royal Kashmir installment, round 3 and possibly round 4 is what really, really excites me. I know that Kashmir group is looking forward to another round with the champs, but don't count out the black and gold, man. They are fantastic. As good a program as we've ever seen in the state of Washington.
Amen to that. And yeah, and that's the thing too, is, you've got potentially 2 meetings between them, and, Kashmir may take them in the regular season, but man, that if they do, that rematch is going to be must-watch football when they get together at state. If they get together at state, sorry, if they get together at state. We'll
talk more about the upcoming fall football season, but this concludes our initial podcast here for VarsityWA. That's Matt Evans. I'm Todd Milles, and I appreciate you checking in. We'll see you soon.